Hello everyone, welcome back to Football-Oranje, your home of Dutch football. I'm Michael Statham, joined by Abdul and our special guest, Dougie. So, Dougie, do you want to introduce yourself, please?
Yes, thanks very much for having me on, guys. Really looking forward to this. My name is Dougie Critchley. I've been working for Sky Sports and a YouTube channel that they own called Football Daily for the last coming up to 7 years, particularly working across European football, a little bit on Sky Sports News, a few other shows that Sky Sports do. So, really looking forward to talking about this massive game and what's been a really, really entertaining tournament. There's been so many shocks, and I suppose you guys are probably praying for another shock on Friday night.
Yes.
If you would call it a shock, I suppose, but no, I think most people would agree it would be. The Netherlands, we've turned up this tournament feeling like Koeman, maybe the factor, a bit like England and Southgate, the factor in keeping them back a little bit from having such a great squad. Otherwise, Netherlands could perhaps be considered one of those favourites for the tournament after your France, Germany, and England. But yeah, we hope that it'll be a bit of a shock that Koeman will set up really nicely and will play on the break. So everyone, as you know, this is the Netherlands versus France preview podcast. We're not live for this one, but if you've got any thoughts, drop them on the YouTube comments and we'll get back to you, of course, or wherever you listen to this podcast. So, Abdul, do you just want to first of all give your thoughts? Now we're post the Poland game. I won that one, obviously 2-1. Deserved win in the end, even though it was late coming. And how you're feeling going into this one against France?
Well, we were supposed to play better. We all expected a better performance, but at least we dealt with the match in a good way. We did the right substitutions. I think Koeman started with the right lineup, except for a few mistakes, maybe I would call them mistakes. And then he made some good substitutions. And obviously, the player who was substituted, the player who came in scored the winner, actually, who was Weghorst, of course. So it was a good result. Win is a win, actually, 3 points. I think there will be little changes in the next match against France. I think Koeman will make some changes. Some players did not really impress in the match against Poland. We talked about them. We talked about the performance of Simons, for example. We talked about also the performance of Veerman. And of course, we talked also about the 4-3-3. I don't think Koeman is going to start with 4-3-3 against France. It's going to be a suicide, really. Even if Mbappe doesn't play, France is always France, a very dangerous, a very strong team.
Dougie, what do you think ahead of this one? What are your thoughts looking at the two teams into this?
Yeah, well, I mean, you guys have got the Dutch side covered, and I'm sure I'll get back to them in due course. But actually, in terms of a French perspective, I think they were pushed a lot harder than an Austrian side. That many people expected them to maybe spring a shock or two in this group, but didn't expect them to push the World Cup finalists quite as much as they did. I thought Austria were so energetic. I think they topped the total amount of tackles by any team by half time in that one. Finished with 27 to their name. Next best was Ukraine with 17. Really unfortunate own goal. Yes, France had other opportunities to add to that scoreline. Mbappe went to the near post in that first half. Then he had that amazing chance when he was through one-on-one and fired wide to the right-hand side of the goal. Olivier Giroud missed a big chance from a cutback as well. But I think from a French perspective, it was job done, really, after in a similar way to England, really dominant first 30 minutes. Austria really built into the game quite effectively. But I think the question on everyone's lips is, can Kylian Mbappe play? Can he start? Because a broken nose, it looked like a really serious one as well. You saw the pictures on impact. That nose is not in the right position whatsoever. And, France have a number of people that could step in for him. But of course, Kylian Mbappe, I think he's about 10 goals away from Giroud in terms of their all-time top goal scorer. Scored 8 goals in the last World Cup, provided 2 assists as well. Yet to score in the Euros, but that feels like a hoodoo that he was bound to break at some stage. So I'm sure the Dutch football fans will be praying that he's not available on Friday night.
Yeah, I think that will make a massive difference to France and how they can approach the game. What reassures me, I think, though, is the Netherlands have got that strong defence, and I can see it being really important if Koeman decides to go with the 5-3-2. He decides to be quite compact and play on the counter-attack. This is where the Dutch can show their credentials in terms of the tournament as a whole, if they can, of course, pass this challenge, which when Koeman did it quite a while ago, I can't remember exactly the date of the game, but France won 4-0. Abdul, you've got a really good memory when it comes to Netherlands games. Tell us about that game and how it went so badly wrong for the Dutch.
The one that ended 4-0, the first one, the qualifier. Well, obviously, Koeman started the game with 4-3-3. And we did have some injuries at that match, but still, you don't lose 4-0 from France when they scored 2 goals actually in the first 10 minutes or first 11 minutes in the match. The midfield was all over the place. The defense was very weak. They destroyed us. And I think it ended 4-0 just because France decided not to attack the entire match. If they kept pushing, they could have scored more goals. And I'm glad that Koeman learned from this mistake. The second match, of course, when we played in Holland, they barely finished it 2-1 with missing at least 6 or 7 key players in the Netherlands. But we gave them a very hard time just because we played 5-3-2. That shows you the difference when you play 4-3-3 and 5-3-2 against France.
And it's been such an obsession, hasn't it, in the Netherlands, the media, the just a formation. It's been going on for so long now. And then, of course, some of the players that have been playing within that, Daley Blind being one of them. Is there any place for him, Abdul, in this one, do you think? Or are we going to stick with mostly the same team, barring perhaps playing an extra centre-back and going a little bit more defensive?
Well, the extra centre-back could be Geertruida or De Vrij. Because De Ligt announced it officially that he cannot play with the 5 defenders. He cannot play when he plays at the right side of Van Dijk.
No,
so that's why Koeman completely put him out of the picture and put De Vrij instead. But will he put Geertruida the next match instead of De Vrij, since Geertruida is faster? Maybe this will be the case. Daley Blind, to be honest, after I saw the performance of Veerman, I think it's better for him to play as a defensive midfielder where he can perform much better there. Unfortunately, we don't have any other option but him. So I think he should start, in my opinion, instead of Veerman.
Dougie, in your opinion on lots of European teams, the amount of football you probably watched over the years, can you tell us about that Dutch midfield? What are your thoughts on it? It's missing Frenkie de Jong. It's clear we're missing his ball retention, the way he can bring the ball forward. He's into play. But we've got 3 still capable midfielders. Joey Veerman in particular, in my opinion, just wasn't performing at his best, and we've seen him play better than that with PSV. And then it comes back to a view I've had in the past of, I don't think he's at that level, unfortunately, to make a difference. But what were your thoughts seeing the 3 together, Schouten, Reinders and Veerman?
Yeah, it certainly didn't mesh that effectively, did it? It was a little bit awkward for sure. I mean, Frenkie de Jong's obviously a huge absence. 10 Koopmeiners as well, dropping out beforehand. And then, am I right in thinking you guys replaced them with Maatsen and Joshua Zirkzee, so you didn't go like for like? And maybe you are slightly lacking in that midfield area. Maybe someone with a bit more sort of legs, a little bit more dynamism, Ryan Gravenberch, could come in. But at the same time, he didn't have a superb season for Liverpool. He was very much a sort of bit part player there. Yes, it was super competitive to get into that Klopp midfield last season after the arrivals of Alexis McAllister and Dominic Szoboszlai, but Gravenberch didn't sort of pull up any trees in the Premier League by far. And then Gino Wijnaldum sort of fading into obscurity slightly. I mean, I really like Reinders. I think Reinders is a top player. Veerman, I was slightly disappointed in. And, you look at that France midfield and the options that they didn't even use in this game because of injury doubts, Camavinga and Tchouameni, Youssouf Fofana only being used late on in the game. They've just got so many options in that midfield, so many different systems that they could play. And actually, you look at N'Golo Kante coming back in from the cold in international football, age 33, everyone thinking that this guy's, quite a random pick by Deschamps. And he proved everyone wrong across the 90 minutes where he just completely dominated that Austrian midfield, despite, Nicolas Seeveld playing very well against him. And I actually thought Rabiot played really well in that first half as well, in particular, created that great chance for Mbappe that I was talking about earlier at the near post. And Rabiot is just such a physical specimen as well. I struggle to see the Dutch midfield managing to contain that. I think that is the key battle in the midfield on Friday night. I mean, one question I wanted to ask you guys is, having watched a lot of Bayer Leverkusen last season, Jeremy Frimpong was just absolutely frighteningly good. And he still goes with Denzel Dumfries, so I've got nothing against. I think he's a great player. He's done well for the Netherlands in international tournaments in the past. But from a neutral's perspective, it feels like you're not utilising one of your key weapons. And yes, you weren't necessarily playing the system for it last time out. But if you do go to a 3 at the back, surely Frimpong has to come in.
It's a great question, and one lots of the people that have been joining like this sort of live stream comments have been talking about. But that's a key decision that Koeman can make. It can make a difference in a game because Dumfries is so effective from the right, and so is Frimpong. But we've not seen Frimpong do it much yet in a Netherlands shirt because of opportunities. Coming off the bench for like 10 minutes, it's not enough for him to have that impact. But I know that Koeman prefers him as a right midfielder, he calls it. Obviously, he's playing as a right winger from our understanding. In a friendly match, he experimented with him on what he called right midfield. He actually played as a right back. It didn't work at all because he was too far up the pitch and then had to come back and be the right back. It was very confusing. It wasn't even a back five or anything. So I think Koeman has learned that he has to play him either as a on the right wing or, yes, he is an option with a back five. But I don't know if Abdul agrees with me. With Dumfries having, I thought, a decent enough game against Poland, we could see what he's capable of. I don't see how Frimpong can suddenly just come in, given their forms when wearing orange shirts.
The problem is there is no place for Frimpong if we play 5-3-2. This is the problem. Unless you take Dumfries out and you put Frimpong instead, I don't see this is happening really. He is an important player. I think he does have so much to show for Oranje, but unfortunately, I don't think he's going to be a starter. The main key is just putting fast players. Dumfries is fast. He will do the job, so he will put him there. As simple as that.
But it's a great option off the bench still, and if there's an injury, but it's disappointing not to use that. We'd like to see him from the left, but we know that's not a realistic choice because he's not used to that side of the pitch. So, whilst it seems like it might work on paper, it might not be comfortable for Frimpong. But the cross he put in one of the friendlies for a goal that was disallowed was absolute pearl. I was like, just a bit of that in the Euros would be wonderful.
Piece of art.
So Dougie, if you look at this, you said the midfield was a key battle there. Arabia might win it physically. What other areas of the pitch do you think could be important here when comparing the French and the Dutch?
Well, it's going to be interesting. Obviously, we've already talked about it, but Mbappe, who replaces him? There's talk that it could be Olivier Giroud. I didn't think Olivier Giroud looked his sharpest when he came off the bench the other day. Already talked about that missed chance. And if he did start with Giroud, then it might be Marcus Thuram shifting to the left wing. Thuram was pretty good centrally for Inter Milan this year. I think he ended up with about 15 goals and 15 assists working with Lautaro Martinez. But I don't think he's as effective on the left wing as someone like Bradley Barcola could be, who I thought was excellent in PSG's Champions League run to those semi-finals, still so young. I mean, that's the thing with this French squad. There's a really nice mix of ages. You've got the Kantés, you've got the Girouds, you've got the Griezmanns, but then you've got Bradley Barcola coming through. You've got Warren Zaïre-Emery as well, who I didn't even touch on, another midfielder that could come in. So Denzel Dumfries, who I think is probably naturally a better defender than Jeremy Frimpong as well, is going to have a very solid game against Bradley Barcola or Marcus Thuram if it is them. Nathan Ake on the other side, I worry less because I actually think Nathan Ake was brilliant against Poland, to be honest. I thought he was one of your better players. And he's coming off a very good season again at Man City. He's probably been Man City's most consistent defender over the last couple of years and can play so many different roles. He's so good on the ball. He's so versatile. I think he's a brilliant player for this era of football. But then, Nathan Ake against Ousmane Dembele. Ousmane Dembele causes issues to anyone he comes up against. Ousmane Dembele's biggest issue is his composure, just in terms of pulling the trigger. His finishing is it feels like you can see why Barcelona spent that money on him. Like, he's got all the raw ingredients, but he's just not that killer just yet. But Nathan Ake is going to have to be alive to the threat that he brings.
What you're describing there about Dembele made me think of Brian Brobby, and I know that they're physically very different players in the way their style of play is, but Brobby spent so long not putting the ball in the back of a net and has now done that for Ajax this season. I thought he would be more of a weapon at this Euros than it has proven so far. It's such a shame. But Weghorst coming off the bench and scoring, I think that's secured now. Him getting more game time for the rest of this tournament. So we won't even see the likes of Xerxes either. Abdul, what do you think about the front positions then? Xavi Simons not having his best game. You were critical of him. You don't think he starts this one then?
Well, if we play 5-3-2, most likely it's going to be Memphis and Gakpo. I think they showed what makes them deserve to be starters in the match against France. My concern is not really who's going to play up front, because it's mostly Memphis and Gakpo. My concern
What's the 11 then for you?
Sorry?
What's the full 11 for you? What's the starting 11?
The entire team, I think, of course, Verbruggen, Dumfries, Geertruida, Van Dijk. I'm still not sure about the left defender. If it's Nathan Ake,
or not?
Definitely not to blend. Maybe Madsen. Right. This is his time. Maybe this guy, I think he has enough experience to play after he played the entire Champions League, and he was a very important player. The midfield, I would say, I would want Daley Blind to play as a defensive midfielder, but I don't think Koeman will do that. He will probably put Reinders and Schouten. And then the key player, the playmaker, this is the question. Who's going to play behind Memphis and Gakpo? Or maybe he will put Memphis as a playmaker, and then he's going to put Gakpo and some other attacker, Malen maybe. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't see it being that experimental, and I do think Daley Blind is going to play. I don't know where exactly, but I think he's going somewhere. My prediction would be that he plays in the back five, and he plays in the left centre-back position, and could be done for pace if he's isolated. And then does he go Ake at left wing-back, who we know isn't his best at left wing-back, left-back, centre-back, brilliant. But when he only starting to get forwards, not sure sometimes. Does Martin then fit better? I don't think Koeman experiments with that, though. In midfield, I'd like to see Blind playing there, but I know it's probably going to be Schouten and Reinders. And then as a number 10, that is the question. And my gut feeling is he's going to go with Wijnaldum. And we don't want to see him there, but I think he might.
The team will be destroyed. I mean, you will see how bad the team will perform from the minute Wijnaldum is playing, really. And by the way, we forgot about Van de Ven. He could be actually on the left side of Van Dijk. I think he's a more logical option. And he has proven himself with Oranje. So it's not going to be an experimental thing. Maybe he will start this match and Nathan Ake as a left back. But again, the playmaker, if it was for me, I would put Memphis. He has a problem with finishing. We saw that in the match against Poland. He wasted so many chances, but he was really annoying to the Polish attackers. So if you put him behind Gakpo and Malen, maybe, he will cause some trouble there. He will make some deadly passes.
Yeah, there's definitely a place like a Marlon to come in. Even Xavi Simon's playing as number 10. That will suit his strengths better. Lots of options there for Koeman. Dougie, how about the French team?
I don't think there'll be too many changes. I think Theo Hernandez starting at left back, I thought he was pretty good against Austria. That's another threat you got to worry about as well. Denzel Dumfries and him have a long-running sort of banter relationship, let's say. There's that poster, I think, that it was either started by Theo Hernandez when Milan won the league of Dumfries on a leash or vice versa. Anyway, it's all got a bit ugly between them. So that's definitely one to keep an eye on. And then supposedly Saliba only started the other night because Konate wasn't so well. So it could go back to Konate and Upamecano. You know, Arsenal fans will make a lot of noise on social media if that happens, as usual. But Konate and Upamecano have that long-standing relationship, having been at RB Leipzig together at the same time. Having said that, I thought Saliba was his usual sort of self against Austria. It'll probably be Jules Koundé again at right back, although I do like Benjamin Pavard in that position as well. But it feels like maybe Deschamps is looking to Koundé now, maybe a little bit more solid defensively. In the midfield, I didn't think Griezmann had a great game against Austria, but I'd be amazed if he was dropped just because of his impact. I mean, he started, I think it was over 50 games a couple of years ago, up until a couple of years ago, I should say, for Deschamps. So he's definitely a firm favourite. Kante will definitely play. Maybe Rabiot is changed for Camavinga, but Rabiot's got such a nice skill set and actually adds so much physicality in that midfield as well. I think he'll probably stay. And then up front, I think they'll stick with Thuram down the middle, Dembele on the right, and then I wouldn't be surprised if it was Bradley Barcola. I think he's the closest like for like for Mbappe. Kingsley Coman's got more experience, but Kingsley Coman's slower off the mark than Bradley Barcola. He's not a particularly quick player, Coman, for the position he plays in. So I think it'll be a front three of Barcola, Thuram and Dembele. And I think it's going to be a fascinating watch on Friday. Two quite different tactical styles. but two teams filled with quality on both sides with really good benches as well in most positions. I know you guys are maybe slightly weaker in midfield than you would have been pre-tournament without those injuries, but I do think there's some really good game changers on both sides off the bench.
Yeah, agree. Fair assessment. And what's your prediction for the game?
Oh, I shouldn't do this on the Netherlands podcast, but I do think France get the win, unfortunately, guys. I think it will be tighter than people think, though. I don't think France are notoriously quite slow builders into a tournament. Even last time out in Qatar, they lost to Tunisia. So do not write off the Dutch whatsoever, but I can see a 2-1 France win.
I'm going to go 2-0 France. I think Koeman may make some poor choices with team selection, but the potential is there. I think the game changes are there. And I hope I'm proven wrong. And I hope there's something like a 1-1 draw out of this, and people start to go, "Oh, maybe the Dutch can do something here." What we Abdul?
Well, I might surprise you if I say I expect Holland to win 2-0. We have a very good defensive line, among the best in the world. Maybe they can stop the French attackers. I know the problem with France is they give you the chance to attack sometimes, and then they just kill you with a goal. But I don't think this is going to be the case this time. Koeman has learned a lot because he faced France many times. He faced them already 4 times in the Nations League twice, and of course in the qualifiers twice. So I think he will learn, and hopefully he will make the right selections to win the match. I would say 2-0 for Holland.
Right, now, given we've got our special guest here, I feel like we need to ask him a couple of quick questions about the Euros in general. So, how far do the Netherlands go, do you think?
Oh, it's a good question. I mean, you're definitely getting out of the group, isn't it? It's so easy to get out of the group these days. I think you'll still finish second. I'm really looking forward to that Netherlands-Austria game, but I still think you've got enough to get a win there. From there, I don't know, quarterfinals probably. I wouldn't put you amongst the top 4 teams in the tournament, at least on paper at the moment, but there's always a surprise. And, you know, a lot of people were expecting big things of England. I don't think England pulled up any trees in their opening game against Serbia. Let's see what happens tomorrow night against Denmark, or tomorrow afternoon, I should say. Yeah, I could see a quarterfinal for the Dutch.
Most likely because Portugal might make it that far too. And then it's, do the Dutch get past Portugal? That is the question. Should that happen? Should that be the route? And who's going to win overall as well? Oh,
I'm sorry if you allow me, Dougie. You said that they're not among the best 4. Who do you think that the best 4 are? Definitely, you would say England, Germany, and France. What is the 4th team?
I mean, before a ball was kicked, I was saying Portugal as well, but I wasn't really that impressed with them last night either. I do just think they've got probably the second best depth in the competition after France. Although, you know, it really does depend on this Mbappe injury. You know, if he's not at full fitness during this tournament, are they still the favourites? It's going to be absolutely fascinating. And for it to be such a sort of freak injury, let's say, it could cause massive, massive shockwaves around this entire tournament. And, you know, you never wish a serious injury on any player, but, you know, no manager that doesn't manage France will be, you know, they'll be rubbing their hands with glee if he's ruled out for a few more games, especially Koeman. So, yeah, I think you guys are just outside that bracket. I'd also think people have underestimated Spain potentially, playing a slightly different style of football than they're used to. It's none of the sort of tiki-taka style. I mean, it was the first time, I think in about 320 games that they'd had less possession and completed less passes in the Euros dating back to 2008. So it's definitely more direct than it's been, but they've got some amazing, amazing young players, you know, Pedri, Lamine Yamal, Nico Williams, who didn't actually have the best game as well. But I think Spain could get in the mix as well. So as you can tell, I'm really hedging my bets.
Who do you think wins the whole thing then?
Before a ball was kicked, I said France, but I was really quite confident that Portugal could go and really surprise us. I'm still going to stick with France. I don't like changing after one round of fixtures, but I thought Germany were the most impressive side in the opening round. Having said that, I thought Scotland were an absolute shambles. So it's difficult to really know how much to read into that, but I'm still going to go with France.
Okay. Thank you so much for coming on. And do you want to just again share with people where they can find you in social media?
Yeah, of course. Handle at Dougie Critchley, and then you can find me across Football Daily, which is a YouTube channel owned by Sky Sports News, and some shows on Sky as well. But yeah, thank you so much for having me on, guys. I've really, really enjoyed it.
Great. And of course, great to have you as well. know your work, and I think people should go and see it as well. You know, see what you on Sky, go, oh, it's Dougie Critchley, but I'm podcast. But I'm sure it's more the other way around.
Exactly.
All right, thanks for your time anyway, and yeah. And if everyone watching enjoyed it as well, do give it a like, subscribe if you're new, and leave a comment wherever you're listening to this show. Bye, everyone.